Jaya Radha Mara, Radha Mara, Radha Mara, Jaya Radha Mara. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paribra Jagat Acharya Ashto Terastata Srimad, His Divine Grace Abhay Charanavinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. His Karnataka Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paribra Jagat Acharya Ashto Terastata Srimad, His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Vedanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Shri Mayapur Navadvip Dham Ki Shri Chaitra Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Ganga Mai Ki, Jamuna Mai Ki, Bhakti Devi Tulsi Maharani Ki, Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki, Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki, Kandaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembly of devotees. All glories to the assembly of devotees. All glories to the assembly of devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Devyam Saraswatim Vyasam
Devam Saraswatim Vyasam.
Tato Jayamudiraye
Tato Jayamudiraye.
Nastapre Bhagavate Uttamashlo
Bhagavate Uttamashloke.
Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki.
Bhagavate Naishtaki.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, text, Chapter 23, text number 8. Priti Maharaj is returning home. Jai. Please, everybody try to stay up. Lolita's gone. Okay, we are at text number 8. Tinakraman sidena Dwasta karma malashaya Pranayami sinuruda Saniruda Sadvargashchina bandhana Tena karman sudena Sidena Sorry Tena karman sidena Dwasta karma malashaya Pranayami siniruda Sarvargashchina bandhana Tena karmanusidena Dvasta karma malashaya. Pranayami saniyuda. Sadvargashchina sammana. Tena kramanusidena. Dvasta karma malashaya. Pranayami saniyuda. Shadvargashchina bandhana. Tena kamanusidhena. Dvasta karma malashaya. Pranayami saniyuda. Sadvargashchina bandhana. Tena, thus by practicing such austerities. Krama, gradually. Anu, constantly. Sirena, by perfection. Dvasta, smashed. Karma, fruitive activity. Pranayami, by practice of pranayama yoga, breathing exercises. Sun, being. Niruddha, stop. Shatvarga, the mind and the senses. Chinnabandhana, completely cut off from all bondage. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, by Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. By thus practicing severe austerities, Maharaj Prithu gradually became steadfast in spiritual life and completely free of all desires for fruitive activities. He also practiced breathing exercises to control his mind and senses, and thus by such control he became completely free from all desire for fruitive activity. Please repeat. By thus practicing severe austerities, Maharaj Prithu gradually became steadfast in spiritual life and completely freed of all desires for fruitive activities. He also practiced breathing exercises to control his mind and senses. And by such control, he became completely free from all desire for fruitive activity. Purport. The word pranayami is very important in this verse because hatha yogis and ashtanga yogis practice pranayama, but generally they do not know the purpose behind it. The purpose of pranayama or mystic yoga is to stop the mind and senses from engaging in fruitive activities. The so-called yogis who practice in Western countries have no idea of this. The aim of pranayama is not to make the body strong and fit for working hard. The aim is worship of Krishna. In the previous verse, it was specifically mentioned that whatever austerity, pranayama, and mystic yoga practices Prithu Maharaj performed were performed for the sake of worshiping Krishna. Thus, Prithu Maharaj serves as a perfect example for yogis also. Whatever he did to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. The minds of those who are addicted to fruitive activity are always filled with unclean desires. Fruitive activities are symptomatic of our polluted desire to dominate material nature. As long as one continues to be subject to polluted desires, he has to accept one material body after another. So-called yogis, without knowledge of the real purpose of yoga, practice in order to keep the body fit. Thus they engage themselves in fruitive activities, and thus they are bound by desire to accept another body. They are not aware that their ultimate goal of life is to approach Krishna. In order to save such yogis from wandering throughout the different species of life, the Shastras warn that in this age the yogic practice is simply a waste of time. The only means of elevation is the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. King Prithu's activities took place in Satya Yuga. In this age, the practice of yoga is misunderstood by fallen souls who are not capable of practicing anything. Consequently, the Shastras enjoin Kalo nasteva 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 gatiranyataha. The conclusion is that unless the karmis, jnanis, and yogis come to the point of devotional service to Lord Krishna, their so-called austerities and yoga have no value. Naraditaha. If Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is not worshipped, there is no point in practicing meditational yoga, performing karma yoga, or culturing empiric knowledge. As far as pranayama is concerned, chanting the holy name of the Lord and dancing in ecstasy is also considered pranayama. In a previous verse, Sanat Kumara instructed Maharaj Prithu to engage constantly in the service of the Supreme Lord Vasudeva. Yat para pankaj pala sabilasa bhaktya karma sayam grahitam udgratayanti santaha. Wrong. Yat para pankaja palasha vilasa bhaktya karma shayam grahititam udragatayanti santaha. Only by worshipping Vasudeva can one become free from the desires of fruitive activities. Outside of worshipping Vasudeva, the yogis and jnanis cannot attain freedom from such desires. Tadvan narikta matayo yatayo piruda shoto ganasta maranam bhaja Vasudevam. Here the word pranayam does not refer to any ulterior motive. The actual aim is to strengthen the mind and senses in order to engage them in devotional service. In the present age, this determination can be very easily acquired simply by chanting the holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshor Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurue Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeyam Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagajatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopaka Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vishvana Shruti Devi Pranamami Adi Priye Vancha kalpatarabhyascha kripa sindhu bhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha namaste girirajaya shri govardhana namane shesha klesha nashaya parmananda daine jaya shri krishna chaitanya prabhu nityananda shri advaita gadadhar shrivas adi gaura bhakta vrinda hare krishna 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 hare 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 rama 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 hare hare. Namaste Jivananda Dasa Vanachari Prabhupada Vallabhaya Sarasvavinurine Agyana Dvanta Gamanam Pashtita Patitatmanam Gyana Gurute Chitarine Chakshashe Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamine Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shinduradi Pashtita Vishtarine. So here we're hearing about how austerities do not please Krishna. This is not the process for pleasing Krishna. There are many, many examples of this throughout our scriptures. What pleases Krishna? What? Love pleases Krishna. Bhakti mam abhijananti yavan. Bhakti mam abhijananti yavan yashchasmi tatvataha. Only this bhakti can please Krishna. Only by bhakti yoga is Krishna actually pleased. There's no other process for pleasing Krishna. So even sadhana is not really sufficient in itself to please Krishna. Why should Krishna be pleased? By how early you get up, by how many rounds you're chanting, by how many, how much time you spend reading. All these things are to help us achieve love for Krishna. And they are expressions of love for Krishna if we have love for Krishna. And they're processes by which we can come to love of Krishna. But ultimately, Krishna is only pleased by love. Everything else is only indicating that love. So only in attachment to Krishna do we actually satisfy Krishna. And there's many examples of this, especially Chaitanya Bhagavat. There's one story of a brahmachari, and he was very austere. He was a very austere brahmachari, because he was only taking milk. He was only taking milk, and that was his austerity, that he was not doing anything but taking milk. So he thought he was very austere. And he became interested in the kirtan of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so he approached Srivas Thakur and said, I would like to join the kirtan of Lord Gauranga, of Vishvambar, Nimai Pandit. I would like to join the kirtan. Because at this time, the kirtans were private. Not everybody was invited. Only the close associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were invited to these kirtans because they were extraordinary. And this was a very intimate thing that was going on, the kirtan of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, non-different from the activities of Krishna in Vrindavan. And this was taking place at Srivas Angam, which can be visited. And all who are going to Mayapur, I recommend visiting Srivas Angam. It's my favorite place to visit in Mayapur. That's where the kirtan started. So this brahmachari, he implored Srivas Thakur, please let me join the kirtan of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And finally Srivas Thakur said, okay, you can join the kirtan of Lord Chaitanya, but you have to hide yourself. You can watch us do kirtan, you can hide in the corner. And so Lord Chaitanya began chanting. And in time, Lord Chaitanya stopped the kirtan. He said, something is wrong here. I'm not feeling the ecstasy I normally feel in kirtan. And so Lord Chaitanya, being all-knowing personality of Godhead, he said, there's someone here who shouldn't be here. And he said, where is he? And so then the brahmachari came out and Lord Chaitanya became furious and said, get out of here. You're not welcome here. Go. So Lord Chaitanya threw him out of the kirtan. And someone can think, oh, so I'm getting this face like, uh-oh. That seems kind of ruthless. Lord Chaitanya can be very heavy sometimes. Don't think he can. Lord Chaitanya was like a thunderbolt. And many times, Lord Chaitanya is very heavy. He's God. So why did Lord Chaitanya throw this austere brahmachari out? So later on, Lord Chaitanya actually met with the brahmachari and said, do you really think that I'm pleased by drinking milk? By drinking milk? Do you think that this is pleasing me?
It was milk last night.
Yeah, he was only drinking milk for a long period of time. He said, this is not pleasing to me at all. What is pleasing to Lord Chaitanya is the congregational chanting of the holy name, doing Sankirtan. That is pleasing to Lord Chaitanya. This is the bona fide process. It's a symptom of love to follow, the orders of Krishna. We're not at the level where we can understand any of the deeper levels of ras, but at least we can follow the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by chanting the holy name and preaching to others. This is the very beginning stage. What did Lord Nityananda say? He said, go and sin no more. Stop your sinful activity, he told Jagai and Madai, and chant the holy name. This is the beginning of love for God, because this is the mercy rasa. This is the expression of God's love for us in mercy. Before we can understand the rasa dance, and before we can understand Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj and Shubal and Sridham and Uddhava. Before we can understand any of these rasas, we have to understand the first expression of God's love for us in this conditioned world is His mercy. So how does He extend that mercy? He comes in the form of the spiritual master and the Vaishnavas and the Shastras, and He says, cease this nonsense and chant Hare Krishna. Go and sin no more. And that's what Lord Jesus Christ said too. He said, go and sin no more. You're forgiven. That's the amazing grace moment. So after that, then we can begin to understand the deeper things. So this brahmacharya was not pleasing to Lord Chaitanya because austerity in itself is not pleasing. And we see other examples in the Shastra also that Maharaj Ambarish was such a pure devotee of the Lord, yet he was a king. He was very, very opulent. And then you have on the other side, you have Dhruvas Muni, who is a Muni, a very advanced mystic yogi who does live very austere and did perform austerities. Yet, when it came down to it, who did the Lord choose? The Lord chose Maharaj Ambarish. He protected Maharaj Ambarish because the austerities that were performed by Dhruvas Muni were not pleasing the Lord. They weren't bhakti yoga. So how do we understand austerity in the context of Krishna consciousness? Krishna says, Yat karosi yat ashnasi yat jahosi dadasi yat tapasyasi konteya tat karosa madarpanam. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever austerities you perform, whatever you offer in charity, do that, O son of Kunti, as an offering to me. So austerity is meant to be an offering to Krishna. So real austerity in the age of Kali means to take on hardships for the spreading of the Sankirtan movement. When you do an austerity to spread Krishna consciousness, that is real austerity. That is pleasing to Krishna. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, one develops spiritual blood by taking risk to engage in the Harinam Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya. There's one nice video that's floating around of Vaisheshika Prabhu. The video is entitled, Catch Your Jaladuta. I love this video, so beautiful. But Vaisheshika Prabhu was explaining how he was going through Bombay and he saw the dock where Srila Prabhupada got onto the Jaladuta, and he was saying, and I was just struck with ecstasy by seeing this place that Srila Prabhupada departed. And I thought to myself, all of us can catch a Jaladuta. You know, that means take a risk to do something to serve Krishna, depend on Krishna, actually have faith. And we may not catch the big Jaladuta that Srila Prabhupada caught, but there's always a Jaladuta waiting for us to catch so that we can engage in the spreading of the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya. So Srila Prabhupada, he took on real austerity. We can say that Prabhupada wasn't meditating in the fires and dunking in cold water, but Srila Prabhupada was risking his life getting on a boat at 70 years old and crossing the ocean to spread Lord Chaitanya's movement. That is real austerity. Going on book distribution is real austerity. Not just sitting in the temple, taking prasadam. Waking up, chanting your rounds, this is real austerity. Doing something that'll help you in your service to Lord Chaitanya, that's austerity. That can be offered to Krishna. Sometimes opulence is an austerity. Go to India with your spiritual master and see how taking prasadam becomes an austerity very quickly. Because everybody's trying to force you to take prasadam. And the austerity becomes actually taking prasadam, not trying to hold back. So, yeah, there's so many different varieties of austerity, but real austerity is done in such a way to help Lord Chaitanya's movement. And of course, we've told this story before, but there's the story of Pundrik Vidyaniti. Pundrik Vidyaniti was a great Mahabhagavat devotee of Lord Chaitanya. He was the father of Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya used to call him father. Lord Chaitanya's father is, of course, Jagannath Mishra, but Lord Chaitanya used to call Pundrik Vidyaniti father. And so once Mukunda Datta Prabhu, very close friend and associate of Lord Chaitanya, and a very beautiful singer in the kirtan of Lord Chaitanya, Mukunda Datta, he was strolling along with Gadadhar Pandit, and he said, I want to take you to this great devotee. There's a great devotee I want you to meet, Pundrik Vidyaniti. And so they went to see Pundrik Vidyaniti, and Pundrik Vidyaniti, he had, his hair slicked back, and they were fanning him with chamaras, and he was chewing pan. Very, very opulent. Things that you would never see a Vaishnava do. Pan is like chewing tobacco, if you don't know, but it's actually more intoxicating, definitely, than tobacco is. And it turns your teeth red. I can tell another story about that. This guy in Vrindavan, we were trying to buy some clothes, and it took us 5 hours to buy these deity clothes because this guy was so tweaked out on pan. He was, could have been it might as well have been cocaine because he was just so crazy. Anyhow, so Pundrik Vidyaniti was chewing pan, and Gadadhar Pandit thought, this is not a devotee, so much opulence. And so Mukunda Datta kind of, rolled his eyes and said, you know nothing, that kind of vibe was going on. And Mukunda Datta quoted a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, explaining the mercy of Krishna, that Krishna's mercy is so great that even Putana was elevated to the platform of Krishna's mother. And so upon hearing that story, that verse, Pundrik Vidyaniti, who was sitting elevated, he fell down and went into a trance for a long period of time. And then at that time, Gadadhar Pandit could understand that Pundrik Vidyaniti was a great devotee, although he appeared not to be. And then you have Maharaj Prataparudra. Maharaj Prataparudra was the king of Orissa at the time of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so Maharaj Prataparudra, he heard that this great incarnation, Lord Chaitanya, he heard about him, and he became very interested in wanting to see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Actually, he was the disciple of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he was the big guru, the leading Vedic personality scholar at that time in Orissa, and actually in all of India. And he had converted to become a Vaishnava by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's another story in itself. But Lord Chaitanya converted him, and he became a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya. And so Maharaj Prataparudra heard about the glories of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He heard about these glories, and he developed an intense desire to meet Lord Chaitanya. He desired to meet Lord Chaitanya. And so the associates of Lord Chaitanya, they felt compassion upon him. And they approached Lord Chaitanya and said, Lord Chaitanya, my dear Lord, would you please meet with this king, Prataparudra? And Lord Chaitanya became very furious. I will not meet with the king. How could you expect me to meet with the king? I'm a sannyasi. I would rather die than meet with the king. It would kill me. And so Lord Chaitanya refused many times to meet with the king. And finally they sent Lord Chaitanya's senior, Paramananda Puri, who is a godbrother of Lord Chaitanya's guru. And so he even asked, please, meet with Maharaj Prataparudra. And Lord Chaitanya said, I'm leaving Puri now. You're annoying. This is all annoying me. I'm going to leave. And so Lord Chaitanya began to get up and walk out. And Paramananda Puri, begged Lord Chaitanya, please sit back down. Don't leave. Please don't leave us. We won't even mention it again. So then they developed another plan that when Lord Chaitanya goes into ecstasy during the Rath Yatra, he'll go into a trance. And at that time, Maharaj Prataparudra, dressed as a normal person, will come and meet with Lord Chaitanya and recite verses to please Lord Chaitanya. And so it did happen that Maharaj Prataparudra, he took the humble position. Even though he was a great king, he took the humble position of sweeping in front of the cart for Lord Jagannath. And then when Lord Chaitanya was resting in one garden, which was not different from Vrindavan, at that time, Maharaj Pratapuruja approached him and began to recite verses from the Gopi Gita. Tavakatamritam tapta jivanam. Very beautiful verses glorifying the conclusion of pure devotional service. And Lord Chaitanya, he became so happy in hearing these verses, and he bestowed his mercy on Maharaj Pratapuruja. So anybody in any position can get the mercy of the Lord. Of course, Lord Chaitanya is specifically pleased by renunciation and humility. These two qualities are very pleasing to Lord Chaitanya. So real renunciation means using everything for Krishna. When one can use everything for Krishna, that's real renunciation. And humility means being humble. So there's so many instances of opulence being used in the service of Krishna, and opulence not in itself doesn't please Krishna. There's another pastime where Lord Chaitanya, of course, his closest associate is Lord Nityananda. The Lord Nityananda Prabhu, he was an avadut. They would say Nityananda Gosai. He was like a sannyasi, but he wasn't a sannyasi. No one can actually understand what Lord Nityananda was. Later on, Lord Nityananda became married, and it became more clear, but during the time of Lord Chaitanya's manifest pastimes, it was unclear what Lord Nityananda was. Was he a sannyasi? Was he a devotee? Was he God himself? People were always wondering as to who is this Nitai? Nitai had very, very peculiar behavior. That's an understatement. He was an avadut. So it's described that at different times, Lord Nityananda, he would dress in exuberant opulence. He would have silks, silk dhoti, silk chadar. He would have beautiful ornaments. He would have beautiful hair. He would have pan. He would have perfumes and ointments decorating his body, sandalwood paste. And Lord Nityananda was in that way very opulent. Actually, there was one Brahmin who had fallen into bad association who desired to rob Lord Nityananda because he saw Lord Nityananda's beautiful opulence. He had so many gems and so many beautiful golden ornaments. So this Brahmin wanted to rob Lord Nityananda. And so they plotted to rob Lord Nityananda. That's a different story. Of course, they couldn't. They tried 3 times. The first time, they fell asleep. The second time they came, there were Vaikuntha guards manifested outside the house where Lord Chaitanya was staying. And they were fanatically chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. It's described that their arms were like elephant trunks. And so they were very scared to rob the house with these guards from Vaikuntha that had manifested. And the third time, a rainstorm struck. A swarm of mosquitoes, scorpions attacked them. Not mosquito scorpions, but mosquitoes and scorpions. So a swarm of mosquitoes and scorpions attacked them. One of them fell in a hole. Anyways, they were bewildered. And then at that time, the one leader of the robbers, he realized this is actually God I'm trying to rob here. So he surrendered to Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, and Lord Nityananda gave him mercy. So Lord Nityananda dressed very opulently. He had a lot of opulence. And so there's one pastime how one devotee of Lord Chaitanya, he could understand that Lord Nityananda was very dear to Lord Chaitanya and that Lord Nityananda was very elevated, but he was bewildered by the activities of Lord Nityananda. He was bewildered by the apparent opulence of Lord Nityananda. So in a very, very humble way, he approached Lord Chaitanya and asked, what is the deal here? Why is Lord Nityananda so opulent? So Lord Chaitanya has told a story to answer the question. Lord Chaitanya has told the story of Bhrigu Muni and the necessity of avoiding offenses to Vaishnavas. And how the Lord is so merciful. So he told that story, but in conclusion, Lord Chaitanya said, even if Lord Nityananda marries a Muslim woman and walks into a liquor shop, he is to be considered always entirely pure. Why is that? Because Lord Nityananda loves Lord Chaitanya beyond all else. This is Lord Chaitanya's conclusion is. So this opulence and this austerity, that in itself has nothing to do with our bhakti. Bhakti has everything to do with the love we have for Krishna, the taste we have in chanting the holy name. And that's what bhakti has to do with. It's the taste for chanting. Many devotees have lots of opulence. Many devotees don't. Actually, Srivas Thakur had lots of opulence. There's one pastime in that regard too, how one day Srivas Thakur, Lord Chaitanya had taken sannyas and he had went to Puri, and then he came back to visit Bengal at one point to see his mother, see Advaita Acharya, see Srivas Thakur. And when he was in the house of Srivas Thakur, he started to notice that Srivas Thakur had so much ghee, so much rice, so much wheat, so many things. He had a very opulent living situation. And Lord Chaitanya asked, my dear Srivas, you have so many children, you're a householder, and you don't even work. How is it that this is possible? How do you maintain your family? And Srivas Thakur said, if I pray to the Lord and I don't get what I need within 3 days, I'll drown myself in the Ganges. And so, not to be imitated, don't try this at home. But Lord Chaitanya said, Lakshmi will starve before there's no opulence in your house. So, because Srivas Thakur had complete faith in the Lord and that Krishna is going to maintain him if he's chanting Hare Krishna. That's the only business, is to chant Hare Krishna. So, yeah, we're not all about austerity. We're about trying to please Krishna. And what pleases Krishna is loving exchanges between devotees. Being personal with devotees, treating devotees with kindness, chanting the holy name with enthusiasm, spreading Lord Chaitanya's movement, preaching, studying, hearing, these things, when done with enthusiasm as an austerity, that pleases Krishna. We have our prescribed austerities. We chant 16 rounds. We follow 4 regulative principles. We take prasadam. We attend the programs, come to the temple. These are our austerities. It becomes blissful because it's in the service of Lord Chaitanya, but that's our austerity. So we can take a lesson there when it comes to chanting Hare Krishna. Because sometimes it's easy to chant Hare Krishna when you're tasting the nectar. But if you're not tasting the nectar, sometimes it's more difficult. But we're chanting Hare Krishna as an austerity. That means you should give your full attention to chanting the holy name whether you feel it or you don't. You should become enthusiastic whether you feel it or you don't. You should do the service no matter what. It's easy to do deity seva when you're feeling it. When you're not feeling it, it's not so easy. But you become consistent and steady as an austerity no matter what. This is devotion. And in that way, you develop real spiritual taste. So we read as an austerity. Sometimes it's like, I don't want to read, but we do it anyways. In that way, you actually transcend the modes of material nature. When you stop being so concerned with these, I'm blissful, I'm not so blissful. Krishna says, Mam chayo vyabhyacharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatit yaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. That when you're engaging in this undeviating, unflinching devotional service, at that time, one transcends the modes of material nature and comes to the level of Brahman, where he becomes satisfied in himself. So if we actually follow the process Srila Prabhupada gave us with enthusiasm, with consistency, then we'll become transcendental very fast, simply by not letting our mind get to us. And that's why Krishna says one should tolerate happiness and distress, heat and cold. They should just continue on doing their service. I was hearing this very nice lecture by His Holiness Dhira Damodar Maharaj, and he was saying, he was talking about stepping stones and stumbling blocks, which I'm gonna take that. What is it called? Because I'm gonna plagiarize that and use that in the Krishna code. But stepping stones and stumbling blocks. He said, that they're actually stepping stone and stumbling block are the same thing. But what appears to be a stumbling block for someone who's not in the right mind is a stepping stone for a devotee if they actually understand. Because a devotee sees everything as Krishna's mercy, and that Krishna is using everything for our benefit. Krishna is using all of these apparent challenges in our devotional service, whether it be on the material level, physical level, whether it be on the mental level. All these things that we feel like we can't control are actually stepping stones for the devotee who understands Tate Nukampam Shushamakshama, who understands that this is all Krishna's mercy. Everything is Krishna's. Krishna doesn't make mistakes. He's Suridam Sarvabhutanam. So if you want to understand real austerity and its perfection, we can think of that verse, Bhaktaram Yagyatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suridam Sarvabhutanam Gyatamam Shantam Richyati. Krishna is the Bhaktaram Yagyatapasam. So whatever tapas, whatever austerity you're performing, whatever sacrifices you're making, whatever that is, you have to do it for Krishna, because Krishna is ultimately the enjoyer of it anyways. And so just being in the Hare Krishna movement is an austerity, because there's so many things we have to tolerate. So if you're doing that austerity, Bhaktaram Yagyatapasam, that's great. And you should also understand that Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, he's the controller. He's the one giving you the austerity. He's the one causing this to happen, this seemingly intolerable circumstance you're dealing with. Krishna's the cause. There's no other cause beyond him. If you're a devotee, you understand that it's my fault, but Krishna's giving me only a token of what I deserve. And Krishna's Suridam Sarvabhutanam. He's our friend. Krishna is our dearest, most sweetest, most lovable friend. And so even though he apparently seems to be causing us pain or misery, it's actually for our benefit. Therefore, Gyatamam Shantam Richati, we can become peaceful. Prabhupada says we gain peace from the pangs of material existence. So this is the real understanding of how to perform austerity. And ultimately, in conclusion, it has to be connected to devotional service. I was just reading the Chaitanya Charitamrita, or listening to it, and I heard this purport where Srila Prabhupada said, one who is expert at understanding the conclusions of the scriptures, that person can make devotees all over the world. He becomes very, very wonderful preacher. Because not just because he understands so many verses, he understands so many shlokas, he knows so many pastimes, he understands the conclusion of all the shastras. And what is that conclusion? That conclusion is bhakti yoga. The conclusion of everything is to engage in devotional service. If you engage in the pure devotional service of the Lord without fruitive activities, without speculation, mental speculation, at that stage, you become fully situated in the transcendental platform. You become happy. You become absolutely joyful. That's the conclusion of everything. So if we're doing an austerity that doesn't relate to devotional service, it's useless. Mogashya moga karmano, moga jnana vichetasaha, rakshashi masarim jaiva, mohinim prakritim shritaha. So yeah, we talked about that verse yesterday with Europe. It's mogashya, it's useless. Your karma is useless. Whatever fruitive activities you're doing, they become useless when you don't have devotional service. Your culture of knowledge, your gyan, is useless because there's no devotional service. Your hopes for liberation, they're useless. They have no value because you're not connected to devotional service. And why is that? Because people are taking shelter of atheistic and demoniac views. What is that? What is that? That's the very first verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam talks about, first or second verse, is that Kaitava Dharma, cheating religion. There's so many cheating religions. And the Srimad Bhagavatam defeats all these cheating religions. These cheating religions are religion that promises you salvation, that promises you economic development, that promises you liberation, that promises you sense gratification, or just mundane dharma. When all that stuff is called kaitava dharma, it's cheating because it doesn't actually give one satisfaction, it's temporary. Krishna says, Yehi samsparsha jaboga dukkha yoniya evate adiyatavanta konteya nateshu ramate buddha. So the wise person doesn't delight in these temporary things. Even liberation from that perspective is temporary. So the only conclusion is pure devotional service. And so austerity performed without pure devotional service is useless. And so austerity should be done under the direction of the guru. We shouldn't make up austerities. They should be done under the direction of the guru. Prabhupada has given us austerities. We fast on Ekadasi. We take prasadam. We chant Hare Krishna. We follow four regulative principles. That's bona fide austerity. But if we start making up austerities, then that's just wasting our time, weakening our preach Krishna consciousness. That's Abu. Preach Krishna consciousness. Deal with other devotees. Try to help other devotees that are struggling. That talk about an austerity. That's real austerity. Always be devoted to your spiritual master in all circumstances. Could be very difficult. This is real austerity. It's one thing to, I practice celibacy. Actually, it's a big movement. Many people, a huge movement in the world about celibacy. Many men are trying to take up celibacy, not just in the Hare Krishna movement, in the world in general. It's the no-fap movement. It's a huge thing. It's all over. But they're all doing it for what reason? To make money and to attract women. It's it's austerity for the purpose of sense gratification. Mike Tyson, he was celibate for many years actually to train because he became very powerful. Free of karma, free of your own desire. Give up your own desire. Give up your own mental speculation. Give up sinful activities. Do things in such a way that's pleasing to Krishna, following the previous acharyas. That's real. It's the devotional service of the Lord that pleases Krishna. And we see that Krishna is not impressed by opulence and he's not impressed by austerity. Last story. Sudam Brahman. Sudam Vripa was one of Krishna's very close childhood friends. After Krishna went to Mathura, they were in the Gurukul together, and it's described how one night they were going out to seek firewood for the spiritual master, and an incredible storm came, which is quite ironic because Krishna is himself the storm. But just simply for the pleasure of this devotee, Krishna's dear friend, Sudam, this storm came, and Krishna and Sudam, they were trying to gather firewood, and they became bewildered and they became confused, and there was so much rain, and so they had to take shelter of each other. And so they hid under a tree and they held each other. This is very sweet. Imagine being that fortunate that you get to weather a storm out with Krishna. And so they were, very close. And they didn't give up their service, though. They did this austerity to please the Guru. And the next morning, the Guru came and found them, and he was very pleased with them. He blessed Krishna. And so in the future, Krishna, of course, became a householder, and he's a Kshatriya, so he was very opulent. But Sudam was a Brahmin, and so he was very poor. He was an extremely poor Brahmin. He was so austere. He was like his ribs were showing. He was emaciated. He had no food at all, wearing rags. And his wife one day, she started complaining. She said, you're friends with Krishna. Please, we're starving here. Why don't you go ask him to help us out? And so he said, yeah, okay. And then, the idea was, if I'm going to go see Krishna, I have to bring him something. But what if Sudam doesn't have anything? So he went and begged. And what he was able to gather was the cheapest chip rice, the cheapest, most low quality rice. And so he had a little teeny bag of chip rice, and he went to see Krishna. He walked to Dwarka, went through all the gates. And Krishna was so happy to see him. Krishna washed his feet, and they sat on the bed and they had a beautiful conversation. And then Krishna said, oh, my dear Sudam, Didn't you bring me something? And Sudam became very embarrassed. How can I present this to Krishna? And so Krishna snatched it from his belt. And then Krishna took a bite, and Krishna was so happy. He said, this is the tastiest thing in the universe, because it was saturated with Sudam's love for Krishna. And so Sudam was embarrassed. And then Krishna began to take another bite, and then Rukmini stopped him and said, no more. And why did Rukmini stop him? Because Rukmini is the goddess of fortune. She's Lakshmi. She's the possessor of all wealth. And she had become so obliged to Sudam for offering Krishna this one handful of chipped rice. She'd become so obliged that if Krishna had taken another bite, she wouldn't have enough to give him. So they exchanged loving exchanges, and then Sudam actually didn't even ask Krishna for anything. He was going to ask Krishna for some help, but Sudam, he couldn't ask Krishna for anything. He's a pure devotee. I'm not going to ask Krishna for anything. But he did the service of offering Krishna, humbly offering Krishna this chipped rice with love. And so when Sudam went back to his house had transformed into a palace. He had unbelievable opulence. And it's described by our acharyas that Sudam was puffed up about his renunciation. Krishna was unpleased because Sudam had been puffed up about his renunciation. So Krishna blessed him with all this opulence, that you can be a pure devotee and you live in a palace, have a beautiful wife, all this nice prasadam. So it has nothing to do with pleasing Krishna. Only love does. Only pure devotional service. Only coming to that stage of being free from all this desire and just pleasing Krishna out of love. That's the conclusion. So anyhow, thank you for listening. Are there any questions or comments, Lavanga?
Yes. You're mentioning Pundarik Vidyanidhi and how Lord Chaitanya used to call him Father. And it made me wonder, who is he in spiritual world? Because I heard he was Vrishabhanu, Radharani's father, and that's why Lord Chaitanya called him Father.
I think I've heard that too.
Because, Lord,
you have to.
In the mood of Radharani. So,
yeah. You'd have to consult the, Deepika? I forgot. Goda Desha Deepika.
You have that book, right?
No, I have the Bhakti Ratnakara, but it's probably in there.
All
but
right.
yeah, you'd have to consult that. It's probably mentioned in the CC or the Chaitanya Bhagavat, but I can't confirm. I think I've heard that, but I can't confirm.
Okay. Just wanted.
Any other questions or comments?
Very nice class.
Thank you. No other realizations to share? Questions, comments?
Yeah. You're mentioning doing these austerities for Krishna, even when they're difficult. And Krishna really does reciprocate when you do. Like last week when I was giving Sunday feast, I was like wanting to do anything else because my migraine was so bad. It was hard for me to be up in the lights. I was very sick. But somehow or other I went through it. And then this week, Krishna's like sitting people that I've met before. They're like, oh yeah, I remember you. You taught me this mantra. They walk into the restaurant and like really, really like giving me some mercy. So it is true that whenever you do something really difficult just for Krishna, he reciprocates.
Absolutely. I think Parameshwara is my favorite example of that. King of doing real austerities for Krishna. Gadra Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki.